The court is now in session. The Honorable Dana Tonelli is presiding. Now continues the trial of the people versus Jesus of Nazareth. You may be seated. Are all parties ready?
Attorney for the prosecution is ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, the trial of Jesus of Nazareth is about to continue. He is charged with being a religious fraud and claiming to be the Lord and Savior. You, the congregation, are the jury. You are officers of the court, and as such, each of you has a vital part to play in this trial. No one here is a mere spectator. As members of the jury, your duty will be to pay close attention to everything that is said. Weigh the evidence for and against Jesus of Nazareth, and pronounce the final verdict. You have an awesome responsibility. You will decide whether Jesus of Nazareth is guilty or not guilty, whether he is to live or die. Mr. Blayloff, please swear in the jury.
Will the congregation please rise and raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that you will well and truly try the case, the people versus Jesus of Nazareth, and render a true verdict according to the evidence and the law? So help you God. Answer, I do. I do. Please be seated.
Prosecutor, call your next witness.
The prosecution calls Herod Antipas to the stand.
Witness, please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
For the record, sir, will you identify yourself?
I am Herod Antipas. My father was Herod the Great, ruler of Judea. My grandfather was Antipaster, the ruler of Judea before him.
Thank you for clarifying that for us. There's often much confusion about yourself, Herod Antipas, and your father, Herod the Great. You were the ruler at the time of Jesus' crucifixion, but it was your father who was ruler when Jesus was born and who did his best to rid the world of Jesus while he was still an infant in Bethlehem, correct?
Yes.
In fact, he tried to have all the male children living in Bethlehem under the age of 2 killed, in hopes of killing Jesus, did he not?
Yeah, but the old man was crazy. I could tell you even worse stories than that. But it wasn't any kind of my doing. I'm not like him. He took it all too seriously.
Yes, you do have a tendency not to take it too seriously, don't you? Our records aren't extensive, but those that we do have show that you had a reputation for being a carefree ruler. Might I say something of a pleasure seeker? Is that true?
You bet. You only go around once, you know. I just don't want to spend my life being hassled.
Well, no, of course. No one can blame you for that. And could you please tell the jury a little bit more about what life was like for you?
Oh, we had a ball. We could do anything we wanted. We had theater, concerts, plays. We had sports, lots of sports. And you wouldn't believe the parties. Almost every night, music, wine, women. We lived a good life.
Yes. But you were governor, too, weren't you? What about work? Did you enjoy that? Did you have duties to carry out, responsibilities?
Oh, sure. But you appoint flunkies to do things like that. You sign a few papers now and then, but that was about it. Besides, Herodias took care of most of that stuff for me.
Herodias. Can you tell the jury who that is?
Sure. Herodias was my wife. Did you ever see her? A beautiful woman. You knew how, who really knew how, and how to have a good time. We really lived it up.
And she had a daughter, too, didn't she?
You bet. Salome, what a beauty. Like her mother and then some. And boy, could she dance.
And the two of them, they gave you some grief about a wild, roving preacher named John the Baptist, didn't they?
I don't want to talk about him.
You must answer the question.
Jesus is the one on trial here, not me.
You will answer or be held in contempt of court.
It's okay, I withdraw the question, Your Honor. Tell us, Herod, more about this Jesus of Nazareth.
What do you want to know?
Well, when he was on trial the first time, Pilate sent him over to you, did he not? Why?
Because he didn't know what to do with him. Good old Pontius Pilate, always in trouble for one thing or another, sour and grumpy, always working day and night. When Jesus came before him, Pilate didn't know what to make of the guy, so he had him sent over to me. Jesus came from Galilee, you know, my territory. So he technically was my problem. And it just so happens I was in Jerusalem at that time, so Pilate tried to pawn off his problem onto me.
And what was your impression of Jesus?
I had heard about him, you know. Word gets around. I really wanted to hear what he had to say. They said he claimed to be Son of God. Well, a man like that should have something to say about life, don't you think?
And did he?
No, he said nothing to me. He stood there like a sheep, all washed out. Why wouldn't he talk? Was he really God's son? I wanted to know. I wanted someone to tell me what life really meant. He wouldn't talk. Blast him? Nothing. Wouldn't talk. Wouldn't even do one of those magic tricks he was famous for.
And you thought that he might?
Sure. We heard that he turned water into wine, into fine wine. What fun would that have been?
But he said and he did nothing. Why?
I think he was just too religious. If there's one thing that's going to ruin a man's fun in life, it's religion. It makes a person too serious.
So you didn't believe that he was the Son of God?
Are you kidding? Look what he was, a common criminal. His own religious leaders were spitting out the worst kind of lies and venom at him. He was one miserable person. So I sent him back to Pilate, and that little bugger had him crucified. So of course that proved he wasn't God's son. People like that only make life miserable.
So to wrap it up then, what would you like to tell to the jury?
Forget him. Get rid of him. Believe me, life is too short. Life is for living it to the fullest.
Thank you, sir. Your witness, counselor.
Thank you. Your Honor, with your permission, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Thank you. May I call you Governor?
Yes.
Based on your testimony here today, it's clear that you have really enjoyed life, haven't you?
I sure did.
I'm glad for you. You had everything going for you. You had power, you had position, you had wealth, you had luxury, you had a good wife. Your wife, I take it, shared in the good life with you?
Herodias? Oh, sure.
No, not Herodias. I said your wife, Basilis, the daughter of King Aretas.
Herodias was my wife.
Well, she was your sister-in-law, wasn't she? Your brother's wife?
Half-brother. She divorced him and married me. It was all perfectly legal.
Legal, though, it doesn't necessarily mean moral or right, does it? That's what John the Baptist kept saying to you, didn't he?
Leave him out of this. I told that other lawyer, and I'll tell you, I am not on trial here. Jesus is.
Okay, just take it easy. Tell me about your first wife, Basilius.
She was a good woman. She loved me.
A good woman, so why did you divorce her?
Well, I fell for my half-brother's wife. Well, what do you want me to say?
If Facilius was such a good woman and she loved you, how could you?
Because she was too good and wholesome. Who wants a wholesome wife? I wanted excitement and fun. And Herodias, well, she knew how to pull all my strings. She was incredible. She was everything I desired. She would do anything for me as long as I gave her everything she asked for.
I'm getting quite a picture of Herodias here. First, you had an affair with her. Then she walked out on her own husband, your half-brother, and you divorced your wife for her. Next, she moved in and started making demands. And now you expect us to believe that you really enjoyed your life with her?
Objection. Herodias is not on trial here.
Sustained.
You don't enjoy life, Herod. You run away from it and distract yourself with temporary physical pleasure. Why don't you admit it? In all actuality, your life was miserable, wasn't it?
Objection, Your Honor. My colleague is drawing conclusions.
Sustained. The jury will disregard.
All right, then. Why don't you just tell us the truth about John the Baptist?
I have nothing to say about that man.
Answer the question.
What was it again?
John brought down the wrath of God upon you for taking your brother's wife. Didn't he accuse you of living in sin? You actually liked John and his teaching until he began to preach against you. Isn't that correct? Didn't John openly, publicly denounce your divorce and your affair with your brother's wife?
So what? John was a religious fanatic.
But he spoke the truth, didn't he? Didn't he?
I don't know. How was I supposed to know what God thinks? How can I answer these questions?
You must do the best you can.
John tormented me for months. I threw him into prison to shut him up. And he screamed at me from the dungeon. Sometimes I could hear him screaming either right in the middle of a party. Finally, I took off his head to shut him up.
Did you now? Wasn't it actually Herodias who made that happen?
Blast you. Yes, she used her daughter Salome, my niece, to seduce me and demand I kill him. But I was the one who did it. I killed him even though I didn't want to. John terrified me. He terrified me because he was right and because he could convince other people that what I had done was wrong. I was afraid to let him live, but I was more afraid of what people or even God would do if I had killed him. But Herodias and Salome knew what I would do anything for a beautiful, sultry woman, and they tricked me into issuing the order to have him killed. Then they even brought me his head on a platter, fully noting how much this act would worry me. Good God, I'll never forget it. That head screams at me in my dreams. I'm convinced John will return to take vengeance on me. I'll never be rid of him, never.
I think you owe it to yourself and to this jury to admit that your life was not truly as pleasurable as you made it sound.
I did have fun.
Your drunken orgies were a smokescreen, a false front you put up to avoid facing the black pit in which you were living. Isn't that right?
I don't know anymore.
What would it take, Herod, to make your life happy?
Silencing the mouth of that bloody head.
A clear conscience? Is that what you want?
Yes, a clear conscience.
Would you like forgiveness from Phasaelus, your wife?
Yes.
From John the Baptist?
Yes.
From God?
Yes, forgiveness from God.
Is that what you need? Forgiveness? Love?
Yes, God help me, yes.
And you want this jury to convict the one person who can bring you that forgiveness and love? No further questions, Your Honor, of this witness. Thank you.
You may step down, Governor. You may summarize, Counselor.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we have with us this evening a man of substantive importance, not like our previous witnesses. This was Herod. Herod, a man of culture and wealth, the ruler of Galilee. Clearly, he rose to the demands and with his wife fulfilled his responsibilities in very complex times. And he exceeded the demands, refusing to get bogged down in difficulties. No, he went beyond to pursue the arts and sports. He was a great host, entertained lavishly. All in all, he sought to find the joy in living, to live life to the fullest. Sure, he made some mistakes along the way, a few compromises, but don't we all? What do you expect? The way he handled everything was the mark of a man of true action. He didn't let it stop. He carried on. He looked at his options and he kept going. He knew, as we all do, that you only go around once. If you don't take care of yourself, who will? Life is for living, not moping, regretting, second-guessing. No, he was truly a man of action. And as for the final questions of the defense attorney tonight, well, his little sermon left me wondering if he truly is a lawyer or if he more wishes he was a pastor. But I'm glad you heard it. The way he dug into our witness's weak spot, poured salt into an old wound, watched him as he squirmed. Yes, I'm glad you saw it, not because of what it shows about Herod, but because of what it shows about Jesus' followers and how they operate. Because you know where they learned all this? From Jesus himself. Some Savior. He finds the weak spot in your life, the blot in your past. We all have them. We're only human. And then he goes to work. He keeps bringing it up, laying that guilt trip on me. Does he bother to look at the fact that you're only human? No. In fact, he blots it all out with his holier-than-thou guilt. And then when he sees that you're really miserable, he says that he's got the answer. He offers you forgiveness. Offers to be your Savior. What kind of Savior is that? Making you miserable just so that you need him. He offers you abundant life, he says. But then read the fine print. He demands that you take up your cross and follow him. What kind of a Savior is that? Someone save me from this Savior. The choice is yours. Declare Jesus a fraud and go on living a life of pleasure, or declare him not guilty and end up as paranoid and vexed as our dear friend Herod is. Dear jury, this should be an easy deliberation. Thank you.
Is the defense ready for closing statements?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. May it please the court. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm asking you to weigh very carefully what is being said here tonight. My opponent, the prosecutor, is trying to convince you that Herod lived the good life and that I am just preaching a sermon to you. But I prove otherwise. Perhaps our honorable prosecuting attorney could himself benefit from a sermon or two, because then he might learn that the good life is not found in having everything you want. It isn't found at wild parties. The prosecutor is confusing the instant gratification of the flesh with a true and lasting joy. And what is the end result of a life spent chasing after such base decisions? You have seen it in this witness. He is a tormented man, tormented not only by Jesus of Nazareth, as the prosecutor would have us believe, but by his own conscience. Herod, like you and me, has a desperate need to be loved and forgiven. What Herod doesn't understand is that it is only through love and forgiveness that we will ever find true peace and joy. This forgiveness can only come through Jesus. Jesus said it himself, "I come not to condemn the world, but to save the world." The prosecutor would have us believe that Jesus comes to take away our joy. But the truth of the matter is that Jesus is the only one who brings us joy. The choice is yours. You can live a life of superficial fun and happiness, or you can follow Jesus and allow him to fill your life with forgiveness and love. The only thing Jesus is guilty of is showing us a better way to live. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this trial is not yet concluded. You have heard the testimony of but 3 witnesses. This court will reconvene next Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. to consider the testimony of James, the brother of Jesus. During the intervening days, you are charged to consider carefully the testimony which you have just heard. You should discuss it among yourselves and consider the veracity of this witness. Consider the arguments of counsel. Determine the truth or falsity of what they have said. And lastly, consider the implications of what you have heard for yourself and all mankind. Your verdict, for or against, will be just as impactful on Jesus as it will be upon your own heart. Bailiff, the court will be in recess.
All rise. The court will be in recess until next Wednesday night.